Since the Table Mesa shooting last week in Boulder, I have been visited by a lot of sadness and grief and love, as I imagine most of you have too. So I wanted to share this morning a few quotes, some starting with quotes by Rumi about grief. You left ground and sky weeping, mind and soul full of grief. No one can take your place in existence or in absence. Grief can be the garden of compassion. If you keep your heart open through everything, your pain can become your greatest ally in your life's search for love and for wisdom. Joy lives concealed in grief. This is Rumi. Quote from Chogyam Trungpa. To be a spiritual warrior, one must have a broken heart. Without a broken heart and the sense of tenderness and vulnerability, your warriorship is untrustworthy. So there's a great deal of trauma in our community. And today I wanted to guide you in centering or grounding exercise that can be a real support for people who are suffering trauma and grief. And this exercise is drawn from somatic experiencing and sensory awareness, these somatic-based mindfulness practices, as well as the work of David Treleaven. And there are ways, like in sensing and in meditation, of being with what's familiar to us in very different ways. So it's like entering our lives through an unfamiliar door, very fresh, engaging with these important questions at the level of soma. So I'm going to talk about ways to connect our body and our mind, our body and our brain to our body. And even though these exercises are very simple, they can sometimes lead to quite profound insight. Or sometimes they can be really activating. So please take care of yourself and don't do anything that's not right for you. So I'd like for us to start with our hands about 15 to 18 inches apart. And they can be higher or lower on your lap, doesn't matter. And slowly let them move apart, not mechanically, but just being present in the movement, coming not close together, but back to where they were, 15 or 18 inches, moving apart and back. And now, would you let your hands begin to move in unison with the breath? So breathing in, your hands come apart, and breathing out, they move closer. And it's not that we try to breathe a certain way, but it's just being present in our hands for the breath. If the breath is small, the movement can be small. If the breath is deeper or larger, the movement can grow larger with it. If the breath stops, the movement stops. So we explore it on our own, how it feels to let this movement happen with breathing. Sometimes you can play with letting your hands move your breath. So your breath moves in relationship to your hands. However it is, not supposed to be any particular way. Let your arms come down as soon as you start to get tired. And perhaps bring one hand to your heart center and one hand to your belly. And feel what you touch. And feel your hand through the skin on your chest or your belly. Let your hands bring a sense of tenderness, of peace. Begin to open to sounds that are rising close or far. Open to the sense of taste in your mouth. And to any smells. The temperature of air on your skin. If your eyes are closed, still some sense of lightness or darkness. And the support that you receive from underneath you, you can feel it. You can feel your weight being held. And now the last exercise is to make a fist with one hand. Again, anything that doesn't feel right, you don't need to do it. But feel this fisted hand. And now with your other hand, would you hold the hand that's fisted? And perhaps begin to stroke it. So keeping one hand in a fist, and bring perhaps some tenderness or some caring with your other hand. So you can stroke it or hold it, or even help it hold. So you're helping it with the hand that's open. Just some caring attention and some kindness. However feels right for you. And when it feels to you like it's enough, let both hands come down and back to rest. Pema Chodron said, "We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together again, and then they fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, and for joy. If you'd like to, bring your hand back to your heart. It's not necessary. And know that your heart is extremely tender and sensitive, even though it may be closed, to protect itself. So feel the actuality of your own heart. And if there's constriction or hardness in the muscles, extending a wish to yourself, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I love and accept myself just exactly the way I am, with whatever is arising in me. This body, this heart, this life. May my heart and mind awaken. May my heart and mind awaken. May loving presence reveal itself through me. I care for my tender heart. May I open to fear, to sorrow, to judgment, to grief, to anger, with loving kindness and with compassion. May I open to any pain or hurt with loving kindness and compassion. Bring tenderness to any wounds that you know and may feel need love. Feel the truth of the vulnerability of loving. May this heart and mind awaken. I'd like to dedicate the merit of this practice to those who were murdered, to their families and loved ones, and to all of those who are in pain. May everyone who has died be at peace, be free from suffering. May their families and loved ones be at peace and be free from suffering. May their grief take them to deeper wisdom and caring and love. May our practice go out and benefit all beings.